Thank you. This is the episode 2 of my podcast. I hope you all like it. I feel really good just about this opportunity to share with you some ideas and thoughts. And we're going to be talking about politics in the age of Trump, and it goes to a few different topics. And please, I hope you enjoy. I hope it spurs some conversation, and I hope it gets people to start talking to each other again and not letting fear guide our actions. So, hope you enjoy. Yeah, well, you can't just come out and call all of Africa or all African countries. You can't just come out and call them shithole countries. You can't say that people from Nigeria should go back to their huts. You can't say everybody from Haiti is this way or that way. But then if you ever heard from people that have been in his personal life and around him away from the camera, he says a lot of this stuff all the time. And not only is it, very damaging to America, it damages the American experiment in the way that we're all supposed to be here equal and we're supposed to have equal opportunities, and to label, a whole group of people pretty much proves a racist tendency. Now, I've heard somebody say before, well, there are certain people that make racist or racial remarks that they wouldn't be considered racist because racism or racists themselves basically is a lot of different actions over a long period of time. So there's a pattern basically. Well, with him there definitely is. And to say that he's using that in his immigration debate is ridiculous. I mean, so that's supposed to pull people together. So we're supposed to degrade people and persecute people and put them down just so some white super evangelicals can feel better about themselves and feel better about and granted, all of them on camera will all disavow it and say it's bad, but I can guarantee that a lot of them feel that way in private. And now that's what some people like about him, is he basically has come out and said what a lot of people think, apparently. Well, there's certainly a lot of racism still in this country. You had laws and things that were changed years ago, but people's emotions weren't as much. And so there's been stuff that's been boiling under the surface for years. So when Trump himself was elected, he basically made all that stuff boil over, which basically coincides with all the attacks by hate groups and white nationalists and Nazi groups, neo-Nazis, whatever you want to call someone who believes white is the only thing that's right, and so he's playing right into their hands. And so by him adding the shithole countries, by him not directly disavowing the Charlottesville attacks, by him saying that, oh, I'm not sure this David Duke character in the KKK, and he didn't disavow them quickly enough. And then he did 4 days later, because he needed to look more into it, when there's actual tape of him about 10 or 12 years ago. I've seen this tape that basically says, where someone's interviewing him and he says, oh yeah, David Duke is terrible and the KKK is not something I want to be anywhere near. So he was disavowing it then, and then later he comes back and says, oh, well, I don't know anything about it. But that all goes into the part he's selling. Yeah. Well, I think, again, like he's painted all the whole group of people from Africa into this kind of group. I think that obviously not all Americans believe the same thing. So everybody's coming from all these different backgrounds and beliefs and ethnicities and everything. But you could certainly make the argument that he is pandering towards, the kind of white nationalist crowd, the evangelicals. And when I say that, I don't mean all Christians. I mean the super right-wing Christians that basically will be hardcore supporters of Israel, strictly because they believe on Judgment Day, when the Messiah comes back, that all Jews will renounce Judaism, accept Jesus on Judgment Day, and will be accepted into heaven. And so, wondering why these like gnarly, these super Christian people will be huge defenders of Israel, I believe is, simply because of they believe that Jews are going to renounce on Judgment Day or something. So whenever I see that, it makes me question, because, I'm Jewish, and I feel like he's certainly pandering to them. He's pandering to anybody who will give him a vote. I mean, the fact that he'll say anything to anybody. He's a salesman. Of course, and within that, not saying that all salesmen are bad or selling complete junk bond type information, but he doesn't have views. He doesn't have opinions. He goes off the last thing he heard, which is funny. Because he ends up, basically respouting either what he sees on Fox News at 6 o'clock in the morning, or someone in the debate before that whole shithole country line came out, where Claire McCaskill was like, "Oh, so you're going to do like a clean DACA bill without anything? Would you be willing to do that?" And then the president goes, "Oh yeah, I think that'd be a great idea." And then one of his other Republican guys go, "Oh yeah, well I don't think that's quite what the president meant. I think what he actually meant was that it needs to be combined with all these things." And then the president goes, "Well, I think that's what she meant." No, that's not, so he goes off whatever he hears last. So basically, he's pandering to white nationalists. He's pandering to the just the really conservative people, and he's pandering to the whole group of working class people that have been voting Republicans for years. I think that's one of the biggest crowds. Now, go ahead.
You were talking about he goes off of the last thing he hears.
Yes.
Or what people want to hear.
Yeah.
Then who makes the decisions?
Well, see, that's the funny thing. Whenever you look at, he plays golf all the time. I've heard stories that he watches TV 4 to 5 hours a day. So when it looks like he has a lot of time on his hands, it's because he does. Which basically means everybody are all making the real decisions are all doing it behind the scenes. So whether it's his cabinet ministers, his defense, his secretary of state, his chief of staff, all of his advisors, they're the ones that are actually running things.
His family.
And his family too, yeah. So and during Bush, we used to always joke that Cheney was the one who was really running the country. So we're kind of in that situation again, except now that duty is spread out amongst a lot of the people, because even his closest people to him will basically give him the most sanitized kind of bulletins they can, where there's no bad news, everything makes him look good, and it appears nothing's wrong. So it's like the yes men of yes men that he keeps around him. Well, it's interesting because a lot of the arguments that I've heard against the bathrooms and allowing trans people into your not allowing them, I'm not sure how you would say that, but into positions or being teachers and being all these different things. So a lot of the arguments against that are the same that were made against gay men when they were wanting to be scout leaders or something. And so the thought was that, oh, well, this person is going to go into the bathroom and molest my kid, when, statistics will show that most child molesters are straight, not homosexual. So going along with that, a lot of the arguments made against trans people are that, oh, well, here's this guy who's going to be in a dress and he's going to go into the girl's bathroom and rape my little girl. Yeah. If people looked at actual statistics or look at what's actually happened, they would know that what that happens by, again, is not gay and trans people. The vast majority of people who commit sexual crimes, especially against minors, are straight men. And probably most of them are married too. So, it's awful. I think the fact that the one bright part was when he put out the tweet saying that all trans people would be out of the military. And then the military, like a week or two later, was like, no, that's not going to really happen. There's what did I hear this stat? 10,000 trans troops or something, maybe 8,000. I'm not sure the exact number, but there's a lot. And a lot of people who, fight and die and love this country, that, it's again, it's the old world beliefs that I think are some people are having a hard time realizing that the world is changing, and people that are clinging to these old beliefs thinking that, oh, well, if we hold on hard enough, we can stop this change from happening. Well, history will show that if you're against the rights of people, period, end of sentence, you're going to lose. History is going to show you're going to lose. So the fact that they're against these people this hard and this much, yes, it's bad and it's awful and all of that, but I think it also shows that real change is coming, because they wouldn't get so upset. The other side wouldn't get so upset and so angry and so vile with their language as if they thought that it wouldn't actually happen. So we're definitely trending that way, and I hope that I hope that people, realize that a lot of these feelings that, yes, the president is making all this, a lot of his top people and his cabinet and everything are kind of help foment that kind of attitude, but it doesn't spring out of nowhere. So, it's basically old attitudes dying off, and I think, and granted, maybe I have my views because I was, I grew up with a very accepting kind of life. One of my mom's good friends growing up was lesbian. One of her best friends had a sex change, and that was back in the 80s when things weren't as probably medical technologically as they are now, I assume. I don't know the whole process with that, and I know there's different levels and there's a lot of different pronouns these days, so I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But I just come from the belief that there's all kinds of different people out there, and if someone is a good person and they're here to build somebody up and they're not looking to step on someone every chance they get, then they're a good person. Now, that can be in any race, culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation. Also, jerks can be. Just not labeling a whole group of people, because unless you knew every single person from that population group, then you have no right to make that assumption. And even if you did, people are different to different people, and without explaining life experiences and the umpteenth variables that would go into that, you would never be able to, categorize one group like trans people, or like people from Africa, or and how racist does that sound? All people from Africa. Well, maybe they should go back to Africa. How is that not being painted out as strictly racist? How is someone saying, oh, well, this person, who may be in the military and who's done 3 tours and is a sergeant or a lieutenant or, some higher rank, that they're going to upset the unit's readiness. So before that, they realize that people have been, trans and homosexual soldiers and probably every other, every kind of category in between have been in the military since the beginning of time. It's just some people, the way things have been, they've had to keep it secret, unfortunately. Well, some of that stuff's coming out now, and there's no going back. There's no going back now. And there shouldn't be going back. I mean, we're moving forward as a country, as a people, as a species. We're evolving. We can't allow ourselves to be pulled back by hate, by jealousy, and everything. And I think a lot of that springs from just personal beliefs that people have, because politicians aren't created in laboratories or by witch doctors or something. They come from us. So really, if we want to fix the problem with them, we need to fix the problems with us. So now, granted, certain communities are getting a lot better with accepting, trans people, making trans bathrooms and everything. It's just, it's slow. Progress in this country is extremely slow. Like how, the Martin Luther King line, the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice, or should I say the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. That is very true. However, we are the ones that can do the bending. We are the ones that help make that bend a little shorter. Well, I think it's all a show. It's all, I mean...
Is it Trump show?
In a way, it's very much a Trump show. You can make the argument that the whole presidency is a reality show. Oh, we may do that, but stay tuned. Wait till after the commercial break, and I'll tell you if we're going to nuke your whole country. But just you got to wait till after the break. But yeah, as far as Korea, I know that Kim Jong-un, his dad, Kim Jong-il, you could even probably go back to Kim Il-sung, who founded North Korea. They've all threatened to a certain extent, but weren't taken as seriously. I mean, granted, they, have nuclear weapons so people don't attack them on their own land. They do this at the, basically making their people dirt poor, making them live in poverty, putting them in labor camps if they say anything against the government. Now, granted, China kind of does the same thing, but they're, kind of a different beast. So when Trump makes these threats, knowing North Korea is only holding nuclear weapons to defend themselves so people don't come attack them, not saying that it excuses any of their actions, just explaining it. It's like two schoolyard bullies going back and forth. Type A personalities that are clashing. One person says one thing, the other one, and then they keep going back and forth. Now this negotiation that's happening, or has been happening, and apparently is probably coming to a head about the Olympics coming up, where there'll be two North Korean figure skaters going to the Olympics. They're actually going to march with the South Korean team, who probably has many more athletes at being in South Korea and everything, under the same Korean flag, which I thought was cool. Now, knowing Trump, he is going to basically take credit for this. We know he's going to take credit for everything, which is funny not to draw the correlation, kind of like ISIS will take credit for any attacks that happen, whether they do them or not. Anything good that happens, Trump will basically take the credit for. Anything bad that happens, he'll say it's somebody else's fault, because nothing is ever his fault. Now he'll say, oh, well, it's because of this tough talk that they're even coming together. Who knows if any of that is true, or who knows if anything not to go off on anything he says is true, because that could be a whole nother episode right there. But, North Korea and South Korea basically are still technically at war ever since the 50s, and it was a armistice or treaty. I'm not sure the exact word. Probably armistice. Basically. A ceasefire. It's basically a ceasefire. So they're still technically at war. They have this big building that they basically built back in the 50s specifically to do negotiations with everything. And now they're using that for the Olympic negotiations, which is great. But, the more you threaten somebody with nuclear war, it's like threatening somebody to kill you. It's like you don't threaten somebody to kill you because you're daring them to pull the trigger. Now, granted, I don't think that would ever happen because, yes, if shit ever did go down, we would flatten North Korea in a second. Problem is that China would get involved, and then if China got involved, all these other countries would get involved, and probably Pakistan and India too, and then you really have started World War III, because then everybody's shooting at everybody. And that's definitely not what anybody wants.
Start talking about these other countries, how Trump has involved himself with declaring certain things about other countries, like how he recently did with Jerusalem. Then he declared Jerusalem Israel's capital.
Yeah, there's a reason why Israel has always been, or Jerusalem has always been Israel's capital. But no president in the last 70 years has admitted that. And I say 70 years because that goes back to when Israel was founded in the first place. Now they know that it's like one of the biggest sticking points for Palestinians in negotiations. Then you ask a lot of Muslims around the world and they feel the same way because this issue is such the epicenter of a lot of the Middle Eastern problems right now. So basically he is granting the ultra-conservatives' wish list. And I think that's the only reason why people are putting up with him, is because he's basically doing all the things that they wish they could have done, as far as the tax cuts, as far as all the deregulation, moving the thing back to Jerusalem. And then that goes back to the evangelical Christians wanting, basically, they want the capital moved to Jerusalem because they believe the Messiah will come back to Jerusalem on Judgment Day. All Jews will basically accept Jesus as their Savior and be accepted into heaven. And that's the only reason why a lot of them support Israel and Jews themselves or whatnot. Now, a lot of the Jews in Israel supposedly support this move. However, that also goes into some of the debate between American Jews and Israeli Jews, because you have the Reform more in America and you have the more Orthodox in Jerusalem or in Israel, and it's kind of like your conservatives and liberals in a way. So there is that aspect, but it's him saying that he wanted to move the capital there so it would take it off of the table take it off of the table, and real negotiations could begin. And Palestinians are saying, well, that's the main point of contention. So if you take that off of the table, then they're completely out. And how is that going to solve anything? I mean, the U.S. is basically making itself out like it can't be the arbiter of peace anymore, which, considering our current leadership, I might have to agree. But I think, it basically makes the stalemate that was going on there a lot worse, because for years, basically, you had the Palestinians saying, we're not going to come to the table until Israel stops building the settlements, and Israel saying, oh, well, we're going to build the settlements, but we'll negotiate about them. You're not going to come to a conclusion about that. Now, you could also say that, Israel in the last 10 or 20 years has had some very, very conservative leadership, and in their, kind of running things. And so things have been trending rightward there, just like a lot of places. Well, probably not right away, but it makes you a fascist country. It makes you, you look at any dictator or any warlord or strong man or whatever kind of adjective you want to use. You look at any of those countries, and that's the first thing they do, is stamp out dissenting media. So if one of the cornerstones of democracy is eternal vigilance, how are we supposed to have a democracy if the leader is saying any negative story is fake? Now, all stories aren't going to be. News isn't always what people want to hear, it's what they need to hear. You're supposed to be somewhat of an arbiter of truth, being as objective as possible, as much as a human being can. But it basically trends us towards fascism, which, it's been going there a lot. I mean, it's been certainly been trending that way. And I've had some of the best conversations with people that I disagree with, because you can display opinions back and forth. But when somebody completely cuts off the other side and makes the only media that is not fake the echo chamber that they themselves have helped to perpetuate, you're no longer living in a democracy. You're living in you could say totalitarian, you could say corporatocracy, you could say oligarchy, you could say a lot of different things. But, and I think part of it goes into the long-held kind of argument of the liberal media, how conservatives have pushed this for a long time, saying that all media is liberal, when you talk to, liberals or progressives, and they would say that most of that media isn't, because there's certain things that they say where, they don't go as far as they possibly could. Maybe they're trying to push a more moderate view, and maybe that's conservatives' way of pushing everything to the right by making moderates and centrists look like liberals. And so then they look like the normal conservatives when back when they would be, they would be the crazies on the outside. And that's why, we used to have a thing in this country called a liberal Republican. It used to be an actual thing. And now either those people are Democrats or independents or libertarian or whatever happened party they end up being. But it all plays into, this media picture of us versus them. There's the liberal side and there's the conservative side, which even MSNBC, you could make the argument, is not nearly as liberal as people make, because they've kicked off some of their more liberal voters, people on there, minus of course Rachel Maddow, because she still, brings in the ratings, which is great, and she's good. But, they've kicked off Al Sharpton, they've kicked off Cenk Uygur, they've kicked off Keith Olbermann, they've kicked off a lot of these people that asked questions that they thought were too uncomfortable, that upset the boat too much. So, considering that those people were pushed out, other people were put in that don't kind of upset the line as much, would almost completely disprove that point right there, that it's, biased or fake. And what is fake? The word fake is subjective. If you say that everything is fake that you don't agree with, are you a 5-year-old? Maybe. You can make the argument that he's a big, 5-year-old bully that couldn't, never admitted fault and was never told no. And if he ever was attempted to be told no, he, came down full force on, with everything against that person and everything they knew and everything they've done, which kind of would probably explain Trump's affinity for, strongmen rulers. The ruler of, the Philippines, who's basically killing thousands of people in a drug war. And how China has such a great leader and how he admires Putin. Well, Putin could be a whole nother argument, considering his whole campaign was funded by the Russians, but again, maybe another episode. But yeah, so fake news, and what's fake? This could be fake. I could be fake, and you could be fake out there. It's stupid. We need to basically, and I heard, and maybe it came from Rachel Maddow, and it could have came from other people too, and it's true. We need to stop paying attention to what they say, because it's simply a distraction. We need to pay attention to what they're doing, because every time the Russian investigation gets a little closer, or some story comes out that has a chance of possibly making him actually look bad, he'll say some crazy thing, some other story will come out about some porn star that he, got with, 10 years ago or something, to distract. It's all distraction. We got to pay attention to what they're doing. They're using this as distraction to put through all the gnarly crap that conservatives thought that they could put through for years. And we can't let that happen.
Last question, going back to his comment on shithole countries, Africa, Salvador, and Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people declared he is racist. Say he's racist. Himself, a few days ago, had to declare he is not racist.
Well, no, and it's funny. I saw this clip on the Daily Show where he was making fun of that same thing. Where I think someone asked him, and he was standing. I forget who he was standing next, but the video clip, he says, I'm not racist. In fact, I'm the least racist person you've ever interviewed. And then, of course, Daily Show, bringing it up to comedic effect, shows the interviewer, and it's some guy from the KKK News, right? Just to make it for comedic effect. But at the same time, yes. Let's not beat around the bush here. Us not using plain language and not saying how things are and like this is part of the reason we're in the mess that we're in. People not, saying what they truly feel and what they think, and letting all their moral beliefs, all their humanity, everything go by the wayside just to promote this person that they feel can push through some of the crap they always thought that they couldn't. How far, without going too far down the rabbit hole, how much morality do you have to lose to support a child molester like the guy in Alabama? And thank God he lost. But I mean, how much do you have to like lose your humanity to, and you can't tell me that these people actually supported that kind of thing. He just wasn't a Democrat. Did they hate Democrats that much? Was that the reason Donald Trump was elected in the first place? Was because people hated Hillary that much? I mean, because any other Democrat that wasn't named her win? Maybe. But it's funny. A lot of his comments, especially towards illegal immigrants, people from El Salvador, Mexico, a lot of these, a lot of Latin American countries. It goes back to the long history of people like railing against illegal immigration and saying that we need to build all this border walls and all the security, but not really doing it. It's all rhetoric, because they know if they did put that in and they did greatly reduce illegal immigration, which by the way, statistics will show that most illegal immigration is from people from Europe and Asia overstaying their visas, and net immigration from Latin American countries has actually gone down. If they stopped all that, they'd have less of this cheap labor. So many people, so many American companies would lose money. And not to say that they're paying their workers fair wages, but maybe those are the people that need to be gone after, not these people who are trying to escape, war-torn countries, or, bad neighborhoods, or extreme poverty. Always going to be racist against them, but it's still better than where they came from. And America has been kind of doing that sort of thing for years. I mean, you can look back at it, and there's probably not one country in Central or South America that the U.S. hasn't either disposed would be a good word too, deposed the leader, ran a coup, took out, completely reformed the government, funded some kind of warlord or drug lord or just all around kind of criminal strongman to kind of tamp down any kind of nationalism, which is funny because America first, it's like the ultimate in nationalism. I mean, there's a reason that, Hitler was called a nationalist socialist, and I'm not trying to equate Hitler with Trump, because that will certainly take away from the historical importance of all the terrible, terrible acts that Hitler did. Until Trump opens up his own gas chambers, you can't, or ovens or whatever, you can't categorize those two. But at the same time, you can see what led to Hitler's uprising, and it all started with getting rid of people who are different, railing against immigrants, saying that they're going to take away from your country, saying all news against you is untrue, and it's fake, So things are certainly trending that way, but also, I don't want to paint just the dark, terrible picture, even though that's kind of where things are going. I wanted to at least add that I think a lot of the bad stuff is coming out now simply because there's a lot of people everybody knows change is coming. Everything is raw right now. And I think basically there's a certain power structure in people that have been in power for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they know they're losing their grip, because the newer generation, we're still going to argue about economics and taxes and things, but all these moral arguments, all these like grouping one group of people into one, kind of circle and downplaying them as all the same thing, all that's dying out. And these people that see that happening, they know they're losing their grip, but they're not going to give up without a fight. So my little bright spot is the fact that a better day is coming. Now it might get worse before it gets better, because there's certain things that haven't fully got dealt with since civil rights and before, and probably going all the way back to Reconstruction, which is why it failed, which could be another episode. Basically, they know they're losing their power. We can basically, not only do we have to stand up and still continue to speak out for what's right and for people. But we need to hold firm. We need to keep moving forward. We need to, not put up with this stuff. And we need to realize that we can build that better world. That better world is coming. We just can't let these people destroy every good thing about our humanity. Our humanity has to rule. Our love for people, our honesty and kindness has to rule the day. Well, thank you all for watching. I hope you had heard a few things that you can have some conversations about. Please feel free to contact me. My email, brr5@humboldt.edu. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook at Bryan Radzin. Check out my website, bryanradzin.com, and help us kind of get the conversation going. And also my Twitter at Bryan Radzin. Just getting used to all this social networking stuff, but so please help me push good arguments and good energy and just consciousness forward. Because remember, if someone actually has to stand up and say, I am not racist, it's specifically to the letter 100% guarantees that they are. Because why would somebody have to say it? Come on. Have a good time. Have a great day. Take good care of yourself. Remember to be kind. And I'll see you next time.